In the name of God, the matrix power, the compassionate absolute. Praise be to God, sustainer of the worlds. Dear brothers and sisters, I wish you a good day and welcome you all in a new season entitled Nuances of Relative Synonyms, all season long. It falls within the introduction and rules for dealing with the Quranic text. And as we mentioned in the program, and that is our evidence, there are principles for dealing with the text, and these principles require faith and prior conviction. That is, for example, when I decide to treat you with respect from the outset, or with mistrust, or with trust from the outset. This is a principle that stems from a prior conviction, whereas that rules have nothing to do with beliefs. They function regardless of whether you are a believer or not. That is, when I tell you that this is a rule or norm that applies when dealing with the Quranic text. If this norm is applied correctly, even an atheist who does not believe in God or in the Quran as a revelation will find it useful and effective. But when I set out to treat the Quranic text on the basis of a principle or conviction, that implies that I must first believe in it. So this series will address the field of rules, a regulatory system that works for anyone as long as they apply it correctly. And this is nothing more than an attempt to differentiate between the meanings and nuances of synonymous words. I say attempt because the subject matter is colossal. And in a previous series, I had dealt with an important issue that I must shed light on, or at least point out, because I believe it is necessary. And that is that there is a difference between absolute synonymy, and unfortunately, even among prominent thinkers and experts on this subject, there are those who deny synonymy in the Quran in general. This is not the case. Synonymy is present in the Quran. In fact, it is one of the beauties of its discourse of the Quran. Synonymy exists in the Quran, but what must be denied is exact semantic concordance of two words that differ from each other in pronunciation and spelling. To explain this topic simply, without complicating the choice of terms, these, my friends, are two words that differ from each other in pronunciation and spelling. That is, this. A word differs in pronunciation and morphology from another word, but both share an identical meaning, as if one footprint matched another exactly. So if we remove one of the two words, the other could replace it in meaning or position, and it conveys the entire meaning without no difference. That is absolute synonymy, which must refuse with regard to the Quran. This must be rejected. There is no word in the Quran that can be substituted for another and convey all its nuances and meanings. There are no superfluous differences, however subtle the difference may be. It is essential that there be a distinction in meaning and connotation, and that absolute synonymy must be rejected. As for relative synonymy, it is the coincidence of two or more words in the same concept, but each word retains some difference in meaning and connotation from the other. That is what we are getting at, working on. That is to say, what many call synonymy and reject is absolute synonymy. But the Quran does indeed contains many terms that share the same referent. For example, two qualities may coincide, as in the case of announcer and messenger. That is, if I ask you, who is the announcer of this community? Muhammad. Who is the messenger? Muhammad. Is it possible that does the word herald imply all the nuances of messenger? No. There is a difference in rank. The president and the commander-in-chief of the armed forces are not necessarily the same person. The president may also be the commander-in-chief, and the president may be a civilian with no connection to the military, and these two positions may or may not functions are combined in a single person. The president, head of the armed forces. Are the president and commander-in-chief the same thing? Same? No, they are distinct roles with independent authority. So the coincidence of two or more attributes in a single concept does exist in the Quran, but each attribute must retain some difference in meaning and connotation. We are going to analyze the connotations and meanings between related synonyms. I will give you examples. I have compiled almost 600 fields. No 600 words, rather 600 semantic fields. Each field contains a group of synonymous terms that in interpretations have been explained as if they were identical, but we want to break them down, dissect the connotations and nuances between these terms. There are 600 fields. And a field can start with just two related synonyms, or it can have up to 15 words. All of that is considered a single field. Let's take an example of the fields, for example, deficiency and doubt, or science and knowledge. That is a single group of synonyms. What is the difference between both? This field consists of 2 synonymous words, and there are others that consist of 6 or 7 synonyms, such as group, party, faction, contingent, and sect. If I asked you what the difference is between a faction and a party, you would surely not say that they are the same thing. And what is the difference between group, party, faction, cohort, and sect? Or when you read every time a group is introduced, what is the difference between group and cohort? And what does office faction mean? There must be a difference in meaning and connotation. Between these words, pretense, belief, assumption. For example, I say to you, you pretend to be such and such, or you believe you are such and such, or you assume you are such a thing. As in the famous quote, you pretend to be a small body when in the entire universe is contained within you. Okay? Can I replace you assume with you believe or you claim? For example, do you believe that you are a small body and that the entire universe is contained within you? Or are you saying that you are a small body and the entire universe is contained within you? When to use each word? There is a difference in nuance between pretend, assume, and believe. By the way, these synonyms represent more than a quarter of the verses in the Quran. That is, for every 4 verses of the Quranic text, there is one that contains a synonym. Therefore, the matter is not simple and requires a team effort, not just one person. And even if all thinkers and researchers devoted themselves to this issue, I say, they will not be able to achieve it because it is a colossal task, truly enormous, to unravel the issue of synonyms. We are trying to find a solution, working with about 30 or 40 semantic fields, depending on our capacity. And someone may come along and add something about the subtle differences we will address regarding certain terms. And this issue is not just a mere intellectual exercise. It is not about showing off erudition. This issue influences the results, legal issues. And we have seen examples of this in the program. That is our evidence. When we distinguish between death and disappearance, we realize that a woman whose husband has disappeared does not have a waiting period because the issue concerns disappearance and the interpretations did not differentiate between the concept of passing away and that of death. When we distinguish between presence and testimony, this was also reflected in the concept of Ramadan, between choice, reparation, and compulsory fasting. When we distinguished between counted days and designated days, this was observed in the result on the time determined for the sacrifice. So differentiate synonyms mean doing away with jurisprudence at its roots. Dear readers, starting in the next chapter, we will delve into this turbulent sea. And we ask, to God, glorified and exalted be He. May He grant us success and guide our steps. Peace, mercy, and blessings from may God be with you.